I like to believe that people being here with us having coffee first thing in the morning, like sophisticated folks like myself who were out pulling weeds before they were podcasting.
Yeah, well, sophisticated. I don't know if that's a word we could ever use to describe ourselves.
I mean, look, man, if I'm waking up to go pull weeds, I'm calling myself sophisticated. And I think that's fair.
Okay, I'll let you go there, and I'll let you think that. You just have your coffee,
You know,
and smile and nod.
Smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave. I haven't thought about the Madagascar movies in a minute, but I've always
long time.
Yeah, a long time. Back when there was a DreamWorks animation slice on the Schmodown wheel.
That is definitely the last time I thought about them, quite honestly. Oh man.
Oh man, those were the days. I mean, it's so weird. Like that whole era still feels a little bit like a fever dream in most ways, and now it's like oddly coming to an end. And I've been very sentimental seeing like Christian setting up his new studio over in New York and like getting everything ready, and it's made me a little sentimental for the yesteryears of the AMC movie talks, and then the Collider movie talks, and the Schmodown, and the all of it. It's making me sad. I'm kind of missing it now.
I miss it. Yeah, I definitely miss it. I mean, I still work for Christian. I work for the Real Rejects, which is where I got this shirt, by the way. My nice little Doctor Who shirt. It's nice little, all the quotes and stuff from Doctor. It's a pretty cool shirt. They have really cool shirts, cool stuff over there. Go check it out. But I work with them, and so like I see these people around here and there. But like, and I talk to Ken Knapsack on the Force Center and talk to Star Wars and stuff.
I talk to Ken frequently.
It is strange, like how it's all kind of like they're all spread out now. It's like it's not like we don't see them all in the same spot, all for the same purposes anymore. I'm happy I'm still friends with them, but yeah, it is kind of like a definitely different experience now. And I do miss the old days a little bit. I definitely miss the camaraderie we had about arguing over stupid little movie trivia stuff and good times and bad times for sure, but definitely remembering the good, and a lot of good there was. But
yeah, I don't know. I've just been reminiscing about it lately and some of the fun that we were having, like just because it does feel kind of like officially the end of it all. With Christian heading back to New York, it just feels like that era is behind us, like completely now. The world is changing and we're all going in new directions, and that's so crazy.
Yeah, I think it's because even though he was never going to bring it back, and there's never a real talk about bringing it back, it always comes in the back of our mind. Well, maybe someday we can do something. Like with him leaving, it feels like that's definitely on different parts of the country now. It's like, oh, we're all sorts of discombobulated as far as that goes. But everything has to go. Everything has to leave. Everything has to stop eventually. And I just I'm happy it happened, as it says. Don't be sad it ended. I'm happy it happened. Happy that it all.
Well, I mean, of course, it's me. I'm just, you know what, man? I don't get sentimental on here very frequently about our good old days. Let's call it what it is. Like, I really don't. I very much, when we turned the corner, I closed the door pretty quick.
Oh, yeah. That was your goal, to get out of there like while the going was good at that point. Not for any real negative reasons, but just like, okay, let's move on at this point. And I get that. I think probably why I stuck with Christian was like part of the reason why, besides getting paid, is that I was like trying to hold on to it a little bit potentially. If I'm being completely honest, I'd probably try to hold on to it a little bit. But I'm happy you're feeling good about it.
I am, and more than that, I do my own pub trivia and stuff now. So it's not like I've stepped completely out of the realm of.
That's true. That's true. I should find a way to do that some more. Maybe I will.
Well, I have a great idea.
Let me guess. It involves moving out to Arizona.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I see that as the only decent workaround in this situation. We could do pub trivia together. We could do live podcasts at the bar.
That is actually a nice draw. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, look, man, we could just bartend together. We could open a bar.
We could
We could
open
open a
a
bar.
bar. That'd be pretty sweet. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. It would be
See,
pretty sweet.
I know. You see what I'm throwing down here? I mean, look,
I
we
do.
start a movie bar. We, have some fun.
Yeah, it sounds better and better, but well, I'll think about it for sure. Think about it for sure.
I mean, you should. And while you think about it, may I also suggest to you listen to the Big Finish audio dramas lately because they've been very good in the Doctor Who world.
Oh, where can I watch those?
You are such a little bitch. You know that? You are such a little bitch. Here I come to you, being like, look, man, there's great Doctor Who happening all around us, and all you want to do is watch it on TV like a Neanderthal.
I am a Neanderthal. I've
You are a
tried.
Neanderthal.
I have tried. I have done. All kidding aside, it's got a little bit of our bit, but I do respect your ability. I don't have the same connection. And it's hard for me to do it without the visualization. I get like distracted like a little kid with ADHD, and it doesn't work for me as well. I'm glad it works for you, and I wish it did work for me better. I really do, because the one I did listen to, the big story I listened to, I did like a lot. And I kind of felt like if I could have gotten just a little more of a transition into it, I could have, or hook into it, I could have like really enjoyed it like you did. I always felt like you always like text me about it. Oh my God, did you hear this? We did this. I'm like, yeah, I know, and it was pretty good. It's pretty good, but I couldn't quite get amped up like you did for it. But if you are someone who does like audiobooks and audio dramas, things like that, I will wholeheartedly back PJ's suggestion of getting into it, because if you do like Doctor Who and can do that, these are the things for you. Absolutely.
Wow, that was the nicest fuck you've ever said to me. Like, that was basically Spock saying live long and prosper in Trek 09.
I try to be artful when I say fuck you.
Yeah, well, I see right through it. So, go fuck yourself, sir.
Thoughts and prayers, PJ. Thoughts and prayers.
Thoughts and prayers. I'll say, so I think with where we're at with Who right now and all the excitement, I've actually been going back and re-listening to the Time War era of the audios, and I just finished re-listening to the 8th Doctor Time War ones. And honestly, it's just, I love it so much because it really gives me that wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, Steven Moffat goodness that we haven't had in a good while. And I know that your dog totally agrees with me because he was barking over there in the corner. But legitimately, I forget, and maybe it's because I see so much of, we'll get into this, but Ncuti's Doctor has been so good at being every version of the character in a way that I don't think every Doctor has always done. And that's a good thing. Every Doctor has been their own thing, and Ncuti is still very much his own thing. But I see a lot more of the characters coming through, of like this one Time Lord who has now gone through so much therapy and like really come into their own.
Right.
That you start to see parts of themselves that used to exist being allowed to come forward. It's very different than David Tennant saying, when you regenerate, it's like you die and a new man goes sauntering off in your body. This version of the Doctor feels like it's kind of the amalgamation and owned a lot of it. But all of this to say in it is that I feel like 8's Time War story is so interesting because it feels so much like this is where so much of the drama builds from. And it's very interesting hearing it now because it's a version of the character who wants nothing to do with all of this and is feeling, you can start to see himself running himself ragged to the point that it's like, I want nothing to do with any of you. Leave me the fuck alone.
Well, it's certainly been a Time War is the focal point for New Who, really. I mean, like, we got like the first 8. I mean, in the first 7 Doctors, 8 Doctors, really. For what we had, it was all kind of great moments, great gate building, but they're definitely kind of separate adventures. Of course, back in the day, they didn't really care as much about continuity or really build. It was more adventures of the week, episodic kind of things, episodic serial. Sure, there were definitely ties that connected and things like that, but it's definitely more of like a collection of adventures. It was when New Who came, it kind of really solidified that by putting the Time War where it did, all of a sudden gave this added baggage, but also added like anchor in every kind of way for New Who. And since and everything else has been kind of built out that, and his reaction to that 9, 10, 11, they all had their own kind of different individualistic reactions to the Time War. And it's still going. It's still going, but Ncuti has also kind of had that second anchor now of like, I mean, meta wise, the whole Disney Plus thing and starting over a new series, etc. That's like that meta version of that, but it also creates the whole bi generation, creates that secondary kind of like focal point where okay, the Doctor has finally had time to be able to anchor himself and rehab himself to the point where he doesn't need to feel completely weighed down by it. He's definitely got trauma there. He's definitely not 100% healed, but he's dealt with it in a way where he can let his emotions out more. And that's the Doctor we're getting with Ncuti. And man, what a great twist of events, because I don't know how much further they really could have gone. I mean, they got to Peter Capaldi, who's definitely the grumpy old man version of him. They tried going this way with Jodie a little bit, didn't work more because of the writing than anything else. I feel like she was trying to do her own new thing, but it just sometimes you need to like take a step back and like cut ties and really start again. This is what I feel like this one did. This one kind of like cut ties from where it was kind of floundering a little bit and really like reconnected to the Who that we know and love, and was able to take, okay, here's where we are. Let's move forward with what we know now.
Yeah. It's just been super interesting listening to it now and just seeing the evolution of it. And it's funny because I think it's arguably that and Stranded that finally pushed the Eighth Doctor into more modern Who in general. I've always considered the Eighth Doctor the Bridge Doctor. We talked about that forever ago when we did one of our very first Doctor Who podcasts, when we talked about the movie. And I've always considered it kind of the stopgap, but also like the bridge, because so much of what the movie does in 90 minutes feels like it harkens back to classic Who, but is 100% also like a launch point for New Who and the way the show is about to evolve into what it becomes.
Yeah, it's an epilogue and a prologue in one movie, pretty much.
Yeah, it's very, very odd, but like to have it this way and then just to be watching something like Boom that gives me very Time War-y vibes. A big part of that is having the villain guard and like all of these characters that we kind of saw right in the middle of the Fifth Doctor's era. Like, what a nice little twist back, by the way, for Moffat to be like, I'm going to bring back some of the angelic Marines and like that whole thing that we originally saw in season 5 with the Time of the Angels and things like that. So anyway, all this to say, I've really enjoyed re-listening to them because I'm reminded that, like, man, Doctor Who is fucking cool. And I love seeing so much of 8's Doctor in Ncuti because I saw it in the very first Christmas special. I'm seeing it in every episode. It's so interesting how much of 8 now is starting to come out. Like that very swashbuckling, old school, fun, vibey Doctor that also is just like when he's pushed, you can see him starting to break, but when he's not, he's kind of mouthy and fun and lippy and romantic and exciting. Like everything that people think that Davies did for Who starts with the TV movie a lot of the time with 8, and I see a lot of that coming back now. And yes, please check out the Big Finish audio dramas because I will talk your ear off about them if given the chance.
And I need someone else for him to talk to you about them, just between us. But
I've stopped trying to talk to you about them unless we're on a podcast because I run into the whole, hey, where can I watch it? Like you're Seth Rogen every single time.
But let's get back to what we can watch. Boom! What an episode by Steven
The
Moffat.
return of Steven Moffat.
I love the fact that what he can do. You mentioned all the things that he brought back. That's the great thing about having a showrunner who had such a big history with who come back and write an episode, because they were already well versed in everything that's going on, and it just felt like a true Doctor Who episode, and really I would say the first real kind of test for Ncuti in a way. I just want to go over it real quick. My main overall initial thought was, what a great idea! What a wonderful idea by Moffat. The Doctor is known for like one thing: running, energy, bouncing around. Like we're gonna fix this, we're gonna fix that, we're gonna fix that. So let's get a whole episode where he can't move an inch. The whole episode where he has to fix the problem, deal with the problem, and stay completely still. In a time where you get Disney money and budgets, Steven Moffat chooses to do a one location episode. And that's so very Steven Moffat.
Honestly, the fact that Moffat came back, number one, in general, but came back in such a way that he basically crafted a singular location 45-minute one act for the Doctor and Ruby just goes to show also why he is still arguably one of the most interesting and unique writers that this franchise has ever seen. And he really understands the world. And it's so funny, but because Genesis of the Daleks, way back in the Tom Baker era, had an episode with the Doctor on a landmine, and he gets out of it pretty easily and pretty quickly. And I love that Moffat looked at that and was like, how can I do that in a new and interesting way and also have something to say about algorithms and where we are as a society? Yes. Like, yes. Thank you for doing that. Like, Moffat is a madman, and I'm here for it.
Well, absolutely. I mean, Moffat's show running has its detractors and its lovers. We are definitely two on the pro Moffat show running side. We did appreciate all of his run with Matt and with Peter. But I understand some people who have detract, who aren't as big of fans. But I think it's pretty universal that people loved Moffat's episodes that were written, at least, especially the ones that are under RTD. So this is a case of him doing what he does best. He just gets in, writes a big, amazing episode, and gets out. And we look forward to those episodes for sure. And I got to throw out there right away, what a masterclass performance by Ncuti.
Dude, week in and week out. Can we just say week in and week out? Like, good Lord, the man is just wow.
Absolutely. I will say, I believe I read this somewhere, and I could be wrong. I don't know where, but I believe there's actually a the production was actually jiggered. This was not supposed to be the third episode, from what I heard, which is interesting to see. Because it does actually make sense in a way. Because, like, spoiler, when Ruby gets shot, to me, there was one of the negatives about this episode was the fact that, like, there's no way she was going to die for 3 episodes. She was made up to be a big part of the series and everything else. So the stakes weren't there. Now, if this was like 8th or like 7th or 6th or 7th, somewhere around there, you kind of go, oh, well, maybe. Kind of like those stakes are a little higher in a way that way, I feel. In the same way, they feel a little more comfortable than I thought they had been. A little bit of a jump in that. But as a third episode, it does lay out a lot of who they are, where they are, what's going down at the same time. So it didn't do bad, but I'm glad that Ncuti had a little more time to kind of get into the Doctor before having to do an episode like this, because this has been a tough episode to do, number 3 in the production block. Like, you can't get introduced to the role away, you get into it, all of a sudden you're doing this kind of an episode. It's a tough sell. I mean, he pulls it off.
It's so funny because when you look back at season 5, right? Matt's first episode that they shot was not the first episode of him as the Doctor. Right. And it's so funny when you can kind of see those happening, and like you can kind of tell an actor is working through it. And yet this is one of those times that it really worked, because I also just think it's because Ncuti is just that good of an actor that it wouldn't have mattered when you shot it. He would have gotten it regardless. But like, he really comes into his own in a way with this one that is just so different, because it's the first one that really is something that is just straight drama. There's not a lot of joking. It is just him doing it, you know?
Yeah, it's that moment. I think each doctor really kind of has that moment. Um, it's an episode where he has to maintain that like typical Doctor Who doctor intensity, but at the same time, because of the stakes, because of what's going on, he has to have it played low key, like really low key, because he's trying to keep his adrenaline down, et cetera, et cetera. So having that happen, like it's such a challenge, and yet it works specifically because this is the doctor who shows his emotions, right? So he gets to show everything on his face. He doesn't really move his face, but he has the tear, he has the thing. It's like it's impressive. I think this is going to be a defining moment in his Doctor Who run, much as I was for the name of it. I know it's a famous Peter Capaldi episode, Heaven Sent, Hell Bent, the one where, it's the one with the diamond one, the one he's fighting, the singular episode he did. When he was the
Oh, wait, the
solo
David
episode.
Tennant one?
No, the Peter Capaldi one when he's in the wheel, and it's a solo episode.
Yeah, that's
Heaven Sent. My son just told me, he goes, "It's Heaven Sent,
yeah.
Dad. You're an idiot."
I was gonna say it should be Heaven Sent. I went to midnight. When you said Diamond and solo episode, I went to midnight. Like I immediately went in because that was the Diamond Planet and all of that. Right. So
that's another one that kind of is similar in that kind of like different kind of acting vibe that they had to do. I think this is right along those lines for Ncuti.
No, it totally is. And again, to get it so early on is very, very cool because I do think a part of it is that this is also a truncated season. We're getting 4 episodes less than we normally do out of like a Russell T Davies era season. So I think there's a lot more of a breakneck pace to get through everything to get to the end of the season. And so it's also allowing them to move things forward in a way like this. Right. And I really oh my God. I could feel it coming. I was trying to get through my thought and it was just not happening. I think that it's good that they're able to move something like this into like the 3rd episode of the season, as it were, and allowing him to really do this kind of master class of acting in such a way that we really hadn't done before. It's just so different. And, you know, Moffat also coming back now after being showrunner, it's reminding me that he and Davies are like really a secret special sauce together. I think that they together specifically tend to craft some of the best stories together in a way that benefits both of them.
Right.
Because I think it also keeps both of them from being at odds with each other. Because they are both their own worst enemies a lot of the time in their writing when left to their own devices.
Right.
So when they're working together, it's really nice, and you see them really doing something cool like this. Right. And, you know, also shout out to Moffat, really making things that we all have to deal with scary. He's been very good at creating monsters out of everyday life, and today it was healthcare and ambulances.
Algorithms
and
as
algorithms,
well, right?
all of it. It was all of it.
100%. I do say, like, one negative about it, like you said it best, we're kind of a little bit of a truncated season. All the seasons now are going to be like 8 episodes. Not necessarily a bad thing. Some people like that because it kind of trims the fat, as they say. I actually prefer a 12-episode season because it does give us a little bit of breathing room. And sometimes those quote-unquote filler episodes can actually give us time to kind of progress and get a little bit more of that character development that we could get instead of having just the big moments. However, I know that it's for the best. I know that this is actually going to mean we're going to get more Doctor Who overall. Like, going to get more, like, we're going to get, obviously, Christmas episode, we'll get another episode, like, series next year, unlike trying to wait like 2 years or 3 years, whatever. So I understand the differences. It's like, this is what we have to sacrifice to get there. But I have a feeling that RTD and, like, with Moffat writing some things here and there, I think they have a handle on how they want to develop it. And I think it's only going to get better as it goes on. I got to be honest with you. I think that once they get like in that kind of engine mode of like just running through things and getting into that, I think they're going to get better at doing it and better at telling stories over 8 episodes. So I think the sky really is the limit, or time and space really is the limit, so to speak. So I'm really excited to see where they go.
I am too, and I mean, it's so crazy to think we're already nearly halfway through the season
I
already. On
know, I
top of it,
know.
like after this week's episode, we will be on the back half of the show.
I know. This is
Uh,
why I want to just throw it out there to I just Whovians out there. Be be patient with things as they go, because this is like I always feel like people are jumping on. I think it's the kind of sign of the times. Also, it feels like we jump on like the first episode, second episode, like, oh, this is horrible, and like it's like, guys, like this is okay to like just let things go, let it tell a story, and let's see how it works out at the end. Give them the time that they need, because I already feel like we've taken a good journey so far, and we got the best to come with Ncuti.
well, and it, I do get that there is frustration once we hit the stride of, oh my god, we finally got episodes again, and then it's going to go away just as
Yeah,
quickly.
yeah.
But hey, let's be happy that number one, we're getting weekly releases still.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be happy that we're back in a new season altogether,
Mm-hmm.
and the quality has been great on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
I would much rather we be patient and allow the creatives to do what they need to do
Yeah.
than being loud and obnoxious and frustrated. And again, I know it's part of the bid to kind of, point fingers at the fact that I listen to so much of the Big Finish stuff. But the truth of the matter is if you want your Doctor Who fix, there are plenty of other ways to get a Doctor Who fix while you're waiting between new seasons or new episodes or whatever. Because there's books, there's comics, there's audio dramas. Like there's, and I mean, look, let's call a spade a spade. I know that there's a lot of Doctor Who fans out there who are just of the new Who era.
Yeah.
You have 27 of the seasons of the show that you could watch
Mm-hmm.
that started in 1963.
Mm-hmm.
Is it older? Yeah, absolutely. Is it chinkier at times because of the budget? Sure. But guess what? The writing's really good for a lot of those seasons. Like if you've never seen the Tom Baker era or the John Pertwee era, I can't tell you how much you're missing out. Like
There's a
you
reason.
almost have to
There's a
yeah,
reason why they're so beloved in the first place, for sure.
right. And again, it's funny. We were talking about this off mic before we started. Like a lot of things are a product of their time.
Yeah.
And some people just do not always gel with the way things used to be made. We
Right.
see it a lot of the time with a lot of young people these days when it comes to anything pre 1990 a lot of the time. And now things from the 90s are called very old by people who are much younger than us. And it makes me want to scream. Um, and they don't even gel with stuff from the 80s sometimes because things were paced differently or shot differently or whatever. And it's like, oh man, but think of all the storytelling you're missing out on because you're letting that be the barrier.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is that when you're raised a certain way and things look a certain way or feel a certain way, it can be very hard for people to
Adjust.
be open
Yeah.
and adjust. Yeah. It's weird,
Absolutely.
man.
Anyway, about the episode now itself, I want to say right off the bat.
Wow, you didn't even try to segue. You were just like, I'm done listening to you talk.
Well, I didn't have anything else to say. I think you said it best. I was going to add to that. There was like perfectly said. So
It would be nice if you said that sometimes.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. It'd be nice if you said that sometimes.
Oh, PJ, you are wonderful. Oh, may I
Thank
continue?
you. I've been waiting to hear that all day.
I've been waiting to say how much I love the fact that I forgot when I watched I watched it 2 times, and I didn't even realize who the cleric was in the beginning. I didn't know it was Joe Anderson, and I love Joe Anderson. I was like, he looks familiar the whole time. Like, and I was like, oh my God, that's Joe Anderson. Such an underrated actor from across the universe and things like that. I just really like him. I think he did a tremendous job in this episode. Just want to point that out specifically. I've been waiting to get that off my chest since the beginning of the episode.
Well, I think the other thing we do have to bring up though is Barada Setu is also in this episode in
Oh,
a
yeah.
little bit of a wibbly wobbly, timey wimey before next season because as
Right.
we know, he will be in the cast next season
As a companion.
of the series as a companion. Allegedly not as Mundy Flynn.
That is what I've heard as well. I actually am a little disappointed to hear that, because I would love to have seen this character come back as a companion,
I don't
especially
necessarily believe Russell.
or Muffet, who said the same thing.
Yeah, but I mean, I'll say this: Davies also said it is about to get very timey-wimey.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
he very specifically said that it's about to get very timey-wimey, and it's also not the first time that they've worked with an actress and decided that they like them enough to bring them back. I mean, obviously, there was Remo was in, the season 2 finale of Doctor Who before she joined in season 3.
As a different character.
He is but they've always found a way to, like, connect them,
Karen
which is
Gillan,
so silly. Yep. And of course, Gwen
Clara.
Cooper, who I'm forgetting
Yep.
from Torchwood. Yes. Anyway, because she is in season 1 before Torchwood, and then they do the same thing of tying that all together. So there will be some way that Mundy Flynn will be brought back in some capacity, whether it's out said, whether it's built into the character. You know what I mean? Like, there will be some extension
connection. I hope so. I hope so. I mean, I'm glad to see her come back anyway. She is a terrific
She's
actress.
so
I loved
good.
her. Loved her at Andor. I love her in this, and I think that she's going to fit very well as a companion. I do love the idea that it's not a human from the 20th century as a companion. We don't have a lot of those, especially in New Who. Most of the humans are just human, or the companions have been like humans from the 20th century. Who hasn't been really to think of? Anybody?
We've really only had that. Like, I feel in classic Who, we only had an alien really like once or twice, you know?
Right. That's basically the thing. But I love the idea of having a different companion like that, especially now that we know that Ruby is sticking around for a bit, that she actually is in season 2 as well. Because I think having a human companion is also important because that's kind of your entry point into into the character, right? You get to see
Right.
We get to see the world like through their eyes the first time we're seeing these things, even though we're the oldest companion the Doctor has. But really, you still get to experience it that way. But having a second companion who is kind of like the Doctor, it allows the Doctor to have someone who is more in line with himself as far as universal views and things like that. They could still have some excitement and go, "Oh wow, I've never been here, I've never been there." Obviously, if it was Monday, she'd be blown away by some of the things that she would see seen. But at the same time, it's someone who is definitely more understanding of how the universe works compared to the human from the 20th century or 21st century, as it would be. So I'm excited to see her come back. I hope she is somebody more like Monday than more like Monday than Sunday. As it
Yeah. I mean, you know what? That's a great way to say it, man.
Mhm.
I really loved this character though, and I thought that she worked really well with Ncuti. And one thing I have to say too is Ruby and the Doctor's relationship in this episode is so great, and I don't think I've liked a TARDIS pairing this much out the gate since 11 and Amy.
Yeah.
One that just really, like, within an episode or two, you just get it, and then by the third, you're like, "Oh my god, you're like an all-time pinnacle pairing." That is what this is, and it's so funny that you brought up the Ruby being shot thing because, honestly, there's a world where I could have totally seen them killing her in this, and then him going backwards in time, trying to, like, stop it from happening, basically, and going into her different parts of her timeline. So she that like, I legitimately bought in for half a second that I was like, "Have they been messing with us this whole time? Like, are they gonna kill her?" And, like, that's why we get that shot later in the trailer where she's like, you know, "Protect my daughter," and he's like, tearfully like, "Don't worry, I will." Like, did she
Right.
die? And he knows, and so I started to think about it like that. Because
Don't doubt you. I get why you did.
yeah,
I kind of did too. Part of that is the music. Part of it was Shooty's reaction. It kind of
yes,
like dragged you in. It was just really well done, and um, the whole thing just makes you buy into. That's what a scene can do. If done right, it can kind of make you believe the unbelievable, or at least the irrational. Like the rational head knows. Like I said, your rational head must
right.
know, but it makes you go, "Does it?" In a way, that is exactly what it did. Shooty's performance, the music, everything was so perfectly played that I admit for a second I was kind of like, are they going to do this? Can they do this? How can they do this? And how can they make it work? I started thinking outside the box, but it just
That's
was
what I
just
started doing. I was 100% on, like, my brain started going into who wrote the episode
right,
and
right.
all of these, like, all this idea that what if this character is an answer to the Impossible Girl by Davies and that sort of thing, and like what you're doing. And now that we're seeing another cast member in this that's going to be in next season as a different character or somehow tie, my brain really started to go into overdrive where I was like, I think they may have pulled the wool over our eyes.
I did think of that too. I actually did think about that too.
And I have to say, man, credit where credit's due. This Susan twist of it all that we've been dealing with throughout the episodes has been so interesting. And this is the first time she's been like a real character
out in front, right?
And it was really good and it was really creepy. And it's making me very interested to see where this is all going because I really wonder if it is going to be that she is like a new family member for him or something. And so this is kind of why I wanted to go back to some of what I've been talking about with the audio dramas because they brought back his great grandson in the Time War stories. Alex. And so now I'm sitting here going like the great grandson is out there, the granddaughter is out there. We have never met his kids that I'm aware of. What if the one who waits is not Susan, but what if it's his child? Because this whole episode also has a real hindrance on as a dad, me, dad to dad. Like there's so much of that throughout this episode and all this season of like family and all these things. What if the one who waits is actually his child?
You know what? I wrote that in my notes as well, something to that effect, because I was like, "There's a lot of there's a lot of father talk in this one throughout." And we had the granddaughter talk already with Susan last episode in the Devil's Cord, and then exactly the dad bit seems so focused on. Like it was kind of like it almost threw me when he said it. He's like dad to dad, and you're like, you don't think the doctor's a dad, even though we had Jenny during our New Who run.
I know.
We don't think about it that way. And he wanted to put that out in center. So I like that thought process.
Well, and it's interesting too, because you know what it ties into is the stuff where it turned out that of all the things, the toy maker had a child.
Right.
The toy maker had his own child who the doctor has now come into contact with and has seen go off the rails. Because as we learned from the maestro seemed to feel like the relationship with their father was not very good and felt like it kind of sounded almost like that it was an absentee father sort of thing.
Absolutely, that could possibly be that. I do have to throw a curveball because I had another thought about the whole thing.
Okay.
It's in the same ballpark, in the same stadium.
Yeah.
What if the one who waits is the doctor?
I mean,
because
I could see it.
What's been another big part of the storyline here? Adoption. Abandoned. What if Susan Twist is the doctor's real mother?
And interesting because Davies toyed with that obviously in the End of Time.
Yep, he absolutely did. He kind of came back to it, and now I know a lot of people didn't like the Chibnall's like timeless child thing, but we know that the mother left the doctor somewhere, and then he was picked up by the Time Lords. What if he is the one who has been waiting for her return this entire time, and now she's found him after all these years?
Well, she could also be the oldest one.
She could be the oldest one as well, absolutely. And it could be that the doctor is part of the pantheon and some kind of demigod kind of thing, potentially.
Well, I told you, I thought that there's the chance that the pantheon doctor could also be the Valyard, because we haven't seen the Valyard in a long time. And there's 100%, again, if we're talking about the wibbly wobbly timey-wimey of it all, there's every chance that the Valyard version of the doctor is out there somehow fractured off of the Time War still. Because remember, that was originally supposed to be like... What was that? The Valyard is like the original 11th Doctor, I think, but like the evil one.
Right.
I could see it. The Valyard being part of the pantheon because it's a version of the Doctor who wouldn't exist in time.
What if Susan Twist is the Valyard? We have had a female Doctor already. And I mean, so we've kind of crossed that bridge already. So I mean, there's a lot of potentials out there for who Susan Twist really is.
It's almost so frustrating that we like Doctor Who so much that we're like, look at we are Charlie Day in that meme. Yeah, with the from It's Always Sunny, the conspiracy meme. That is how I feel right now, because in the end, it'll probably be none of what we're talking about, and yet I don't care because we're doing it responsibly. But it's just
Right.
there's so many options of what they're doing, and off of the clues that they've given us.
Absolutely, 110%. There's so many different ways it can go. The only problem there is the idea we have to speculate responsibly, because at the end of the day,
Exactly.
it's probably gonna be something completely left field that we don't have even thought of yet. But as long as we understand that or aware of it, and we don't like cling tight to any of these theories we had, it's okay and a bunch of fun.
You and I never actually cling on to this stuff in the way that everyone like. I am always open to just being surprised by a thing, even if
Yeah.
is not the thing that I think it's going to be. We've talked about that a bunch, and I do tend to think that we've talked about it here before. Is that maybe that's a part of why growing up watching bad horror movies ended up being the best thing for me, and growing up watching so much Doctor Who, because even over time, doesn't matter how many times I speculate about things, I'm just there for the ride, and I'm never there just for my own theories. And even
Mm.
if a thing is not the thing that I thought it was going to be, I would rather it tell its story and be the thing it needs to be. And I think that is a thing that is lost on a lot of people.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of people that way. I think it's fun. I think it's fun to talk about and to joke and to like think about it. But it get you going. But like at the end of the day, Moffat and RTD have never really fully steered me wrong. You've never haven't agreed with every choice they've made. But I'm always interested. I'm always interested in it. So absolutely a good shot there. Wow, a lot of good things, a lot of good chances there.
There is, and again, I think it's also the wibbly wobbly of it all, right? I mean, there's
Mhm.
just so many things that they're doing, and it's very clear that Russell is having the time of his life
Right,
being
right.
back with the show. And I'm so curious what, like, it kind of feels like once he saw how much they were starting to go back to classic Who stuff, that he was like, "Oh, you mean I can play with those? I can actually
Mm,
use that stuff more." And I think that that's why I'm so convinced that it's going to be something kind of classic Who related, because it does feel like he's starting to use Unit a lot more than he used to, or
yep.
using past characters more than he used to, and I like that. It makes me happy.
Mhm. Absolutely, 100%. Um, yeah, I wanna say another random theory. I'm just writing down notes and things that came to mind. These aren't theories even necessarily, just kind of thoughts. I started wondering whether Susan have we ever had any canon it made canon that Susan was his biological granddaughter?
As far as I'm aware, I mean, it's one of those, I think we just take it at face value sort of things because
Right.
they've always said it. And I did have a theory that, like, by the way, she wouldn't necessarily be the one who waits, because she has met him.
Yeah.
She's met 3 and 5.
Well, yeah,
So,
that's
like,
true.
and she's met 8 also in the audios more than once. Now, granted, it's like everything else. A lot of those multi-doctor stories, how much of it do characters remember? Do they not remember? Et cetera, because timeline shenanigans and whatnot. But Susan has met and seen the doctor many times since.
Right. That's fair. That's fair. Um, yeah, that's a lot of different chances going on there at this point. But either way, going back to the whole Ruby of it all, though, we'll say I want to again point out, and like you mentioned it, but I kind of want to. I think it's important to say it again. The performances of them together were such a phenomenal anchor to this episode, um, and the relationship could be summed up to me by when she's about to give, she's giving the doctor the remains of Joe Anderson's there. Not that long, babes. When she answers that back to doctor, I'll be cross on you for a long time. Not that long, babes. And they laugh together. It was just a powerful moment of friendship and of who they are, where they are. I just thought that was so well done. So well done. This is the anchor of this episode for me. I mean, shooting performance is one, but the relationship is the other.
Well, and that's why I said earlier, man, like, they really are just a dream pairing for the TARDIS in a way that I don't think people really recognize already in some capacity. Like, we're very lucky that I think most of New Who has been really good when it comes to companion pairings and the
Mm.
characters we get, because 9 and Rose, 10 and Rose, 10 and Donna,
Mhm.
and for a lot of people, there's a lot of people who love 10 and Martha. I don't love that relationship. I think it's kind of
Same,
frustrating and
same,
irritating at
same.
times, but I get people also like that era. But then you had 11 in the Pawns, and that to me, like I said, I think 11 in the Pawns is arguably one of the best pairings the show has ever seen. 11, the Pawns and River, another great set of pairings.
Mhm.
11 and Clara, 12 and Clara. There's
Golden Class, huh?
so many great pairings, and I say what you will about the Chibnall era. There's a reason that so many people seem to like the fam. I
Right.
thought that they were underwritten a lot of the time and didn't get enough to do, but there's a lot of people who like it. But the companion doctor relationship is such a finicky thing and such a special thing that you really need to get it out the gate. And I think it's because Shooty and Millie just seem to really get on in real life. Like, you see all these pictures of them out at Disneyland together, out at all these different conventions, or just even behind the scenes where they're hanging out, and it looks like they're just having so much fun.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it really comes across, you know?
I really do agree. And Shooty, I mean, Shooty seems like he gets along with everybody, but like, man, when he gets along with somebody like you're his mate, it feels like he is like really just a charismatic, fun, loving person. Like, it must be amazingly fun on set because they just seem like they just refuse to not have a good time together. And I love that
Right.
about him. It carries through on the show, into the show.
It really does. And I think that that's really important, honestly. And again, I think that that's one of the best parts about this. And I think we should note in all of this, part of why this is all such a big deal is because this is also the first episode not written by Davies in the new era. Obviously,
Mhm.
again, Moffat is a very classic Who writer at this point for a lot of the modern Who fans and things like that. But, had someone walked into this and written an episode and it didn't work in this new era, it could have been really detrimental, even if especially if it was someone like Moffat. Like, imagine
Absolutely.
had this not worked.
Absolutely. It could have been disastrous in a way. So I'm very interested to see there's only one other episode that's not written by Davies in this run. I'm not sure which one it is, but I know that it's
It's
involving
towards the end. I think it's the
six,
penultimate episode.
6 or 7. Yeah, it was either 6 or 7. So I'm very interested to see what that's. I know Kate Herron's involved, so I do like her. So we'll have to see if that works. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that went down in this episode that was really poignant, really strong. I love it's very character defining for the Doctor, or at least character reminding. You have the idea that humans
Episode
as
6.
episode 6, okay, as humans as war, not necessarily warmongers, but war hungry. Point where, like, they're fighting themselves, they don't even know it. Like, what a great metaphor that is. That you're the army there is not even fighting a real battle; that they're fighting against each other and don't even know it. There's this pretend or imaginary beast that they've created in their head. That's what they're fighting when they're really fighting because it's making money for somebody else. What a great metaphor! It's like it's just
Oh,
well done.
it's real well done and real,
Poignant.
Moffat clearly has had a lot of feelings
Yeah.
about the current state of the world
Uh-huh.
since he left, and
Mhm.
politics in general, and I felt like that was such a between that and the thoughts and prayers, like, it was very pointed at people who like to create invisible boogeymen and go to war over things and give money to people who really aren't gonna do anything except line their own pockets.
Yeah.
Like, it's it's not hidden in anything.
It's
The crowd
not.
who really thought this season wasn't gonna be woke must be really upset.
Yeah, I don't know who those people really thought they were, what they thought they were watching, but it's not there. But I will say also one important thing for me, or one thing I think is good, is that he's very vitriolic on on the thoughts and prayers bit. He gets on Verada for being for faith. Faith basically meaning you can't think for yourself. But he softens a little bit and lets people have their own faith. Like he does say at the end. At the end, he's like, you know what? I may not like faith, but doesn't mean I don't need it. And understanding where faith comes from, and there's a place for faith. I think it's important not to close off all the book, so to speak. Like there's room for everything. Everything's in moderation. We just never learn that as a species. We're getting further and further away from that. Everything's either black or white. Everything's either all or nothing. It's either in or out. And there's really what really has always made us humans as our strongest. I think humanity as our best was a combination of everything. Having faith, but doing something about it. Like it's that kind of like it's a give and take relationship with our life. And I think we have to remember that. I think Moffat remembers that too, even if he leans a little way more sometimes because it needs to be, because we need to lean that in some way sometimes. But it's not all bad either. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Good.
It's one of those, you have to people like watching things to be entertained.
Mhm.
They don't necessarily want the world shoved down their throats.
I get that. I get that to a degree.
But no, I agree with you. But it's important to do. And Moffat does a really good job at balancing the truth of things around him and bringing that into the fold in a way that is, I hope, probably not, but I hope when people watch it and they go, man, look at all this. And you can kind of go, yeah, but with my family, for instance, I could see a world where they watch this and one of them could be very uncomfortable about some of what's happening, but it's also very important to be faced with your own things you've said in a different way.
Discomfort, yeah.
I think it's really important, actually.
I agree.
And I think Moffat has done a very good job. He always has. I think Davies is always. Now, granted, I do think Davies has been a little more on the nose, and always has been. He's not very good at tiptoeing in a way that I think Moffat's a little better at tiptoeing.
Agreed.
Without
Agreed.
it feeling like a bludgeoningly big hammer just smashing you in the face. But sometimes you just need a hammer.
Yeah.
Also, both can be true.
I absolutely.
and I think that this episode is a perfect example of that. Because this is not exactly Moffat tiptoeing at this point.
No, not at all.
Not even a little bit, in fact. So I think that's super interesting. And again, it does feel very time-warmy, though, right? Because you have this planet that's in this desperate battle that shouldn't be having a battle, and they're stuck basically in this looped bubble where they're fighting themselves without knowing it. And I kind of love that.
Me too. I think it's an inventive idea that really hasn't been seen, as far as I know, in this kind of capacity. So it really kind of twist your mind, as only Moffat has really been able to do. And he just has a special knack for doing that, writing that kind of episode. I will say also that I think it's lovely, and in that Doctor Who sentimentality way that really is really the heart of the show. And I think why it turns some people off, but this is why people like us love it. The fact that it's the AI who has retained a part of John Vader's like soul or character, who it is. That's the one who turns it. It's a program that still is just enough of the human that he loves his daughter and is going to fight for her. Dad to dad, he's going to turn that thing to dust because he's going to protect his little girl. And there's something powerful about that. Sure, is it like fantastical a little bit? Absolutely. Would AI really do it? I don't know. I never after the AI that much, but I got to say that probably not. I don't think we're that far along, but who knows? I think that it was a very nice gesture, a nice touch, and a very powerful moment.
Yeah, and I think that once again, it's interesting that another sci-fi show like this, and then of course Black Mirror, very famously last year, really getting ahead of a lot of what's going on in AI and really trying to point at it.
Yeah.
I mean, and oddly enough, like in the last 24 hours, we've seen that break about the Scarlett Johansson thing.
Yeah.
Like, what did these companies think were going to happen when they just decided to take her voice and use AI to steal her identity? Like, what did they think was going to happen? And so it's very interesting to see television and these shows doing this right now and facing, what does AI actually mean? What are we doing with AI? How, like, are we using it to help people? Are we using it to benefit us? What good can it do? What bad can it do? And being very upfront about a lot of that. And I think that this episode does a lot of that, while also like pointing very heavily at our healthcare system.
Absolutely.
Well, man, like you don't really fit our typical thing, so we will just let you die. That seems not great. And yet, I believe that as a thing. Our healthcare system is jacked across the world a lot of the time,
You are
especially
not
in America.
ordained.
Yeah.
Treatment withheld.
And that's also the
What?
religious side of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
and we're seeing more of that sort of stuff, honestly, as weird as this sounds, but with the ongoing, not to go too deep into it, but like with the ongoing struggle with abortion specifically right now in this country, there's a lot of the religious side of that comes out with doctors and things like that, and what's happening with abortion also. Like that is also kind of coming through, and it's not the first time this season that they've kind of pointed to that ideal or
Mhm.
idea, not ideal idea, because there was also in Space Babies that a lot of that also pertains to that sort of conversation. So it's just very interesting that they really are very much looking inward and trying to express their frustrations at why are we not helping people who are alive be
Right.
alive?
And it's a good question to ask. And yeah, Doctor Who's always
Yeah.
been best about like pointing out certain faults in society and what we have to possibly look at to be looked at. I mean, now, is it going to change anything? Probably not. But to get enough people talking about it, maybe someday it will. It's definitely better to talk about it than not talk about it and ignore it for sure. So,
No, it
um,
totally is. I'm just so curious because again, I know that that's it's also a hard thing for anyone to do, but they're doing it. And
right.
I do appreciate that they are attempting to do this type of stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, so what else did they talk about as importance about? I thought I had written down in some of my notes something else that I really wanted to. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this when Rose. I would say I do that every once in a while. I slip and say Rose when Ruby almost dies. A couple of big mystery questions thrown in there. First of all, the ambulance's next of kin moment.
Mhm.
I don't know if it was asking for next of kin or if it was short circuiting because it couldn't find a next of kin because it was freaking out about it, didn't know what to make of that. Um,
I
that
think
could
it's the
be,
latter.
I think so too, but that could also be two things too, because we've seen something like that before where a computer couldn't find an next of kin because she's a time traveler and it kind of throws them
Right.
for a loop as well. So it could be just that, but it feels like it's a little something different with Ruby. But of course, there's that and the idea that she almost dies and the snow comes through and then the snow stops and freezes, which she's just about to die. Some definitely curious moments there for sure.
There's a lot going on in that.
Mhm.
In a lot of ways, and of course the snow
Yeah,
returning and them going, well, it never snows on this planet. What is going on with that? What
right.
is it about Ruby that Christmas is so ingrained in her now that the song, the snow, the setting, like all of this seems to be really manifesting itself on a like weekly basis in a way we've never seen before.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's building to something. Everything needs to be building to something. And that's what the show has done great at, which is why we're talking about it so much. We're talking about all these possibilities, all these different things, all these mysteries that are going to be answered somewhere in the next, 6 or 7 episodes. Next 7 episodes we're going to get. Or no, 5 episodes. Sorry, next 5 episodes we're going to get. I'm saying 10 for some reason. There's just a lot of, they have a lot to take care of in 5 episodes. And I'm hoping they can stick the landing because it does feel like I'm not worried because of the professionalism of RTD, the storytelling of RTD. I think he knows what he's doing. But man, it is like, wow, it's hard to see how they can fit everything in 5 episodes.
It is, but I also think, and I brought this up a little bit last week. I do think it's because we're going to see a lot of this story continue into next season.
Maybe.
Um, I'm really convinced that it's going to feel like one big story when everything is said and done. And it does. The only reason I say that is because between these two seasons, it'll be much closer to a single run of the old version of Davies's seasons, and I can see him taking the 2 blocks and seeing it as like side A and side B of like a vine.
Mm. Yeah, I could see it. I think. I mean, he did say we were going to get answers. That it was not going to be left up to things. But I feel like there could be smaller answers that do lead to bigger answers later on potentially. That could be, especially because we do have
That's what I
Rubio coming
mean.
back.
Yeah.
And I'd be interested to see if that happens. It makes sense. It makes sense in every which way, shape, or form. And of course, RTD is kind of like the Doctor, and they swerve away from real answers like that. Hell, I was in an interview with Moffat who was talking about the Verada of it all, and he wouldn't say a damn thing. He's like, "Nope, I'm not talking about that." He's like, is it somebody different? I'm not talking about that. That's Russell's thing. I'm not it's gonna unfold. Let it unfold.
But I mean, and as we know now, he's also written the Christmas special, which
Yep.
she is also in.
Oh, is
So
she in it? I
Moffat,
didn't know Verada was in the Christmas special. Okay, interesting.
and so I don't think Moffat is being nearly as forward about what he knows and what he doesn't for obvious reasons.
Shocker on that one, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
So there's a big there's a lot in that as well. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot happening
oh yeah.
is what I'm getting at. And I'm very curious because I'm wondering how this all will tie together. Because it doesn't feel like right now that we have a clear indicator just yet. And that's a good
Right.
thing.
Well, yeah, I agree as well. I agree. It's doing what a story should do in its first third or whatever. It should make us intrigued and excited and figuring out stuff. We want to know. We want to know what's going on, right? And we do want to know what's going on. At the same time, we do get these episodes like this that are satisfying even without the drips, even without the drips of information. We still have some amazing moments. Still have some connective tissue. We had one of my favorite Ncuti not monologue necessarily, but line so far when he gets to the point of telling Narada, "No, I'm a Time Lord. If I explode, you're all going with me." Pretty much, it was a
God.
great performance. I actually wrote down the quote because I was so excited about it. I'm a Time Lord. I'm a higher dimension life form. I'm a complex space-time event. I'm a much bigger bang than you bargained for. I'm a lot more explosive than I look. And honey, I know how I look. I can't pull that line off. I'm sorry. Put a quantum change reaction through me, and I'll shatter this silly little battlefield of yours into dust. All of it in a heartbeat into dust. That right there was a Capaldi-esque kind of delivery, and it worked so well. It was like that kind of like, this is the general. This is the Doctor becoming the general again for a moment when he needs to. You have to understand what's going on here, soldier. Take care of this shit because you're in much bigger trouble than you think you are.
I love it so much. And it just again, I don't think anyone, and this is not a dig at any of the other writers, but there's just something about Moffat in the way that Moffat's writing in particular always almost sounds so grandiose coming out of the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
It's so exciting and so intense, and I really have always loved that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of those moments is that in particular. And I also think he's very good at building the tension around those moments because it makes the moment where you're watching the tick on the on that landmine as the green lights start to flicker closer and closer to explosion, and it's just kind of interesting and it's just kind of fun, and it's very Hitchcockian.
Yeah.
Like it's very much Rope or Rear Window, like that kind of just tension building in a way, and it's just so fun, and I love that.
I will say I was like when he steps on the landmine to begin with, and we figure out already what the lights mean, and he asks what the gap is. I'm like, my God, you start with 4 fingers only? Like, that's not a way to build tension. Like, you got to build up the tension first. But like, man, you started off at like, it's like starting off a countdown, a 10-second countdown at 4 in a way. You're like, oh my God, we're that close. Holy shit. It's like, but he manages to ramp up the tension even more, and it works out splendidly for its favor because we get to that final moment. And I don't know if we've ever gotten closer in the countdown. We actually let to have the countdown go off and be saved at the last minute with a kiss. So
I loved that reveal too. I loved that the father had gotten into the computer and
real fist bump moment.
basically became like it basically became a virus and was like, I'm going to protect everyone, and I loved that. I thought that was so great, And so he will now, they will be the last victims of AI systems that have gone crazy. I just kind of love that.
I agree. Another moment I really enjoyed was when, I mean, so there's the subplot there, obviously between Verada and her Anglican mate there, who ends up getting killed, which was like, it's the lesser part of the story for him. It was fine, it was just good enough. But when he gets killed, again, it's Shooty's performance is like so spot on. Like he's standing there, the countdown is on. He takes that moment to say, I'm sorry about your friend. And it's just heartbreaking how he delivers those lines. It's I haven't seen a doctor so perfectly say things like so soon into the production. Like it just he inhabits the role so well, so well.
Oh, he really does. And again, it's the writing, it's
Mhm.
the acting, it's the all of it. This is a really, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I really do think that this season's very, very special in a way that I don't think everyone necessarily gets or agrees. Like, I'm so thrilled with how it's gone. I'm so excited for where it's going because it feels special. It feels different. And I don't know, maybe it is just how jaded I felt
Mm.
coming off of the last era. But like considering I actually liked Flux more than most people and I thought Power of the Doctor was a fantastic finale,
Yeah,
it wasn't like I was coming into this era like, man, all of the Chibnall era was bad. So I don't think it's that. It's
no,
just that we're in this era that the show just feels
feels right.
vibrant again
Yeah,
and it feels new again while also feeling so familiar and so right. You know what I mean?
absolutely. I know 100% what you mean. I agree because I had the same kind of feeling, and I like the Jodie era probably even a little more than you did. I like
You
Flux even a
do.
little more
You
than
like
you
it.
did.
Yeah.
And I had my I mean, overall, me liking it more is not like that big of a it's not that much more. But I do love Power of the Doctor as well. And yet, like I don't know if I said it on the episode or I said it offline, but I'll say it again. If you heard me already, I'm sorry. The real problem we had with Chibnall's era was the fact that it wanted to do a new show, wanted to like really take it took the idea of having a female doctor and go, all right, we're gonna revamp this thing, we're gonna make this a new era, and just went too far with the newness of everything. It was new showrunner, new actor, new companions, new music, all new enemies, and it felt so detached from the show that we grew up in love with. Which is why by the end, when it started reintroducing some of those pieces again, that's when it started to feel better and more closer to what I had, closer to what I remember. But it still wasn't great because I never loved Chibnall's writing, even when he wrote for Davies or Moffat. These episodes were
No, I
fine.
agree.
They're fine.
It's so funny because I go back and I look and I go, yeah, no, I actually don't love a lot of the episodes he wrote even then.
Yeah,
You
they're
know what I mean?
fine.
Like they're fine. Yeah. That's pretty much it.
Right, exactly. So it makes sense. But this, you bring back RTD, you bring back Moffat, and this just feels right. It feels like we're home. I feel like we're Han and Chewie walking aboard the Falcon again. Chewie, we're home. Like it works in a way that Chibnall's era didn't, and that's why I'm much more willing to give this a lot of latitude in certain other areas. And it comes to like if there's pacings off or there's some things that go too much on the nose or whatever, I'm willing to let that go because this feels more like the Doctor Who that I know and love.
Yep. And that's exactly it. And I do think that, we've talked about it before. I do truly believe that a part of it is the fact that I love Murray Gold's music, and I didn't realize just how much I missed it until we got back to the specials, and I was like, "Oh, I said it then, and I'll say it again now. He's the secret sauce." Like
Mhm,
suddenly, Doctor Who to me feels like Doctor Who again.
mhm.
I think Gold just does something different, man,
Yeah,
and it just hits different.
absolutely does. And it is like it's like John Williams with Star Wars. Luckily, the animation side of Star Wars has been blessed to have the Kiners who have kind of taken up that mantle to a degree. But there's something about Murray Gold who just hasn't. I don't even know the gentleman or even the lady's name who did like season third, the Jodie era, the Chibnall area, but it just didn't sit with me, and I wasn't as recognizable in any. I don't really remember hardly any of the music from that. And I'm sure they worked hard, and everything else. It's hard to match someone who has been like so connected with a show, so connected with a character and its surroundings. Trying to replace that's almost impossible. And Murray Gold coming back was one of the best things that could have happened to the series for sure, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's part of why, again, to your point, I think we're both just a lot more forgiving to things, and this comes full circle to what we talked about earlier. We were both very lucky that we grew up the way we did, which was
Mhm.
watching a lot of horror movies that were of lesser quality that we found enjoyment in because it
Yeah,
really it helped us both learn how to look at art in what it is giving you, not what
right.
you want out. And again,
100%.
I cannot stress enough, guys. It's all about taking the art that you're enjoying, or not even necessarily enjoying, but it's all about taking the thing that you're watching at its face value and really looking at it at what it's giving you, not what you want out of it. And I think
Bingo.
that that's very important.
Bingo. Very, very important. Um, for one of my favorite lines, this is completely out of the blue now. One of my favorite lines, I wanted to know if you had another favorite line to mention, but me, what, seriously? Now I need proof? Faith girl? Great delivery. Perfectly delivered.
Great delivery. Yep.
What a
And then
poignant
of
moment,
course
right?
the thoughts and prayers coming right after that. Like
Oh, so
it
good.
just hit the right way.
Absolutely. What else did I love? I'm just looking through my notes now, just kind of hitting like little bits and bits. I do love the fact we had a lot of, like you mentioned before, we saw a lot of the former doctors. There's definitely some callbacks throughout here. Um, when he
The
does
fish
the
fingers and custard.
yeah, absolutely favorite food still. Sky Boat song, originally played by Troughton on the recorder way back when. So
Yep.
that, and the master in Jody's era when he was doing that for a little bit. So like it's kind of like a nice little through line that they do that, which is kind of cool. I noticed
Well,
that.
and again, the even linking back to having the like angelic marines and all of this type of the villain guard and all of that. All of
Villain
that
guard. Yep.
is very straight out of the Moffat era, and I loved that. I loved that that came back because we really hadn't seen anything like that since A Good Man Goes to War. So, it's little things like that that go a long way in the world building too.
Oh. I want to throw out one more that I recognized. He had a poem he wrote or he read, and it was about I went down to the beach, and there she stood, dark and tall at the end of the wood. Sky's too big, I'm scared, I cried. She replied, young man, don't you know there's more to life than a moon and a president's wife? Which calls to mind Missy talking about Peter Capaldi. Since when do you care about the doctor? Since always, since the Cloister Wars, since the night he stole the moon and the president's wife. It's like a little callback to that, and I'm like, oh, that's a nice little quick callback. Or I remember later on, I think it was Hellbent, where Peter Cavalli actually insisted over that he was, it was the president's daughter, and I didn't steal the moon, I just lost it.
God, it's so good. And once again, just
Look
little things,
fictitious.
man. It just hits different.
Yep, absolutely. Um, well, I mean, we're actually running like shorter than we usually do, but I mean, I think we hit the important parts. Is there anything about the episode that you want to hit more on? That
I
you
mean,
thought?
there's not a lot left for me to say. I feel like I would actually love, though, down the line. Back in the day, Doctor Who did have a stage show, but I would
Mm.
love to see this used as like a single stage 45-minute Doctor Who play. Um,
Oh, very cool.
I just think that the basis of it being so singular in one location and all of that really lends itself to being something I would love to see them try to do live on stage somewhere.
That could be really cool. That could be really, really
Yeah,
cool.
I just
Definitely.
think it's really built for it. I love that we got this because I really think it allowed Ncuti to once again just prove time and again why he's so right for this role. He
Mhm.
just is, man. Like some people were built and born to be the Doctor.
And he was.
He
Absolutely.
absolutely was. Like,
No
he's
doubt in my
built
mind.
to be that character, and I love that this just reminds us why.
I did actually look. I had one question I had asked of you, and this could be me looking into things. Because damn it, I definitely am guilty of that at times. The very end, they're looking at the horizon together. Doctor and Ruby break off, and Doctor's like, your lifespan sucks. We got to go. Basically, they have this moment where they look back out, and it looks like Ruby's looking at the horizon, looking at Mundy and Splice, the daughter. We definitely we even going to talk about the daughter. That was a great moment too. Um, but it almost felt like the Doctor was breaking the fourth wall and looking right at us. when he says everything melts away. So talking about the snow, and it looks like he's almost breaking the fourth wall again. I don't know
He
if that
is.
was
I
meant
think
to be.
he's
He is.
directly yeah, I think he's directly breaking the fourth wall again because it's not the first time this season he's done it,
Right.
and it's
Nope.
not the first time in the series because the first Doctor also famously broke the fourth wall in the past. So like they really are leaning on that. There's a
Right.
lot of that happening right now.
I like the fact that I didn't know for sure, though. I like the fact that it's a little vague. You're kind of like, oh, he could be, but he could also not be. I don't know. Interesting. So I want to say that there. Okay.
No, it definitely is.
All right. Let's talk really briefly about the upcoming episode. We get to see the preview for 73. Looks like it's going to be a
I
Doctor
have not
Light.
watched it.
Oh, you didn't watch the preview?
I am
Oh.
trying to go in more blind to the episodes outside of what we've seen in the trailers.
Okay, that's fine. I won't say much more about it, though. I already kind of set it out there. It does feel like it's going to be a Doctor Light episode, potentially. Interestingly enough, right
Interesting.
away.
Okay. Well, again, it's part of that kind of sped up production, right?
Yeah.
In the things that you're doing.
It does seem to take place. I mean, I don't know if you want me to. You want to cover yours or something? So I kind of feel like I want to say it a little bit about it.
It's fine. You
Okay,
didn't tell me you were going to do this, you fuck.
There's a couple. It takes place in Wales. It does say, like, as we've seen some of the shots in the trailers already, it looks like the place where Jodie regenerated. And it does show this woman in the background. I don't know if it's Susan Twist. I don't know if that's going to finally come into play because I feel like it's got to come into play now because Susan Twist has been seen by the Doctor and Ruby now, whereas before she was always kind of a background you could kind of ignore. You can't ignore her this time. They saw the ambulance for sure. There was one actual moment where I could have sworn it looked like she was watching Jodie regenerate almost because like she was like at a hill. You saw the TARDIS on the hill like Jodie was, and you saw like a female form, and it looked like she was doing this. The only problem was it was like the clothing looked like darker than it should have been. I don't know. It was kind of very. So if it was Jodie, I'm calling it now. But if not, I'm wrong. It's just me looking into things. But definitely seems like a Doctor Light episode, Suze, and it seems like that Ruby is going to deal with some kind of woman. And I don't know if that's a twist or what it is. I think we're going to get some answers. I really feel like this is like an answer episode, potentially. But we're going to find out, I guess. Any last requests there, PJ? Any last moments or things you want to say? I love you too.
Space babies!
Again with that. Okay, fine. You son of a bitch. You son of a bitch. Where can the folks find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram and all the socials at PJ Campbell. You can also find me here talking movies, doing the whole thing, being mad that it looks like we're not getting another Friday the 13th film for at least 3 years and a new recent update because everyone hates us. And I just don't think we're going to ever see Jason on screen again.
I don't either. It's very sad. It's very sad. You can find me crying in my beer as well all over Twitter at Paul_Denuzio. And you can find me all over this channel. We got a big blue box. Will be here for the next 5 weeks afterwards. And we'll go return with 2 mediocre white dudes on film as we go into the John Wicks of it all and the Nightmare on Elm Street of it all. And and then we have every week we do Queen on Crown Jewels. I do a review with Lego about V. And I do Holy Snokes with Bandy Gunner on Star Wars. But I think that'll do it. Yeah, if you like this, subscribe, leave comments, all that stuff. We are now just
do
about
the thing.
Do a thing. Hit Patreon if you'd like. Patreon.com/PLD Projects. Some cool people there, like got all sorts of cool people there. Brandon Buckingham, got Austin Cadell, and it's a great, cool crew. And if you can't, I get that too. But subscribe, get your friends here, let them know about us. I guess that's it. We'll see you next time, my friends. Take care, and as always, run.
Space babies!